we'll have missed that bit there. So let me just, for the benefit of the tape, rerun that. So Jira, an event will trigger, by which we mean it could be a scripted event, it could be a listener, a scripted listener, it could be a workflow action, it could be an on-edit, it could be any event will trigger. The creation using a Confluence blueprint of a page in an existing space in a known Confluence instance containing information pushed from Jira. So, Johnson, are you happy with that as the overall description of what your process does?
Yes.
Right. So, Jeff, the Confluence one is we will create using a Confluence blueprint a link to, we will create using a Confluence blueprint a page in a known space containing linked information pulled from Jira.
Yep.
Yep. Yep. So what you then do is you take both of those two use cases, yep, and you start to break down what are your requirements. So there's a common requirement that both of those use cases have, which is that there is a Confluence blueprint that you can access. Okay.
I think I should probably at this one, because I did, although it was partly about the technical, what me and Neil have produced is something that sort of affects the way this is going to be done in the sense about the process. Mostly in respect to Jeff's side, is sort of split it into two separate things. One's a recipe and a sort of how-to blog post guide sort of thing.
Yep.
On my side, and the other one's more of a product. So the idea that we've gone for, which is my side's pretty much the same thing. It's going to be, like you said, getting out all the common factors of a Jira ticket, like the description, the assignee or whatever, and who's interacted with the ticket, all the information you can get like that, having a template, and then showing them how to replace certain parts of the template with that information. Yep. That will be a recipe and a blog post. But what we decided for the other way, and it's not obviously not just Jeff's sides, because Neil, I pretty much know how to do half of it as well, so I'll be able to help Jeff on it, is that we decided to make pretty much a set of individual macros, which you put your Jira ticket in, and then it will, so one macro will be
yeah, hang on a minute, Johnson, you're just running a little bit further ahead than I've got to.
Right.
So I was talking about a blueprint.
Yeah.
And that blueprint will contain a set of Confluence macros. And so at the big picture, you need to have a blueprint. That blueprint contains a set of macros, and you can add and remove macros as you wish. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
Now, so what you will have, and you were absolutely right, Johnson, these are definitely the requirements. So when you actually come to those macros, this is how you represent different types of information in that blueprint page. So, for example, how you would pull and retrieve a user, whether it be the reporter, the assignee, a watcher, or whatever, would be very different to how you would display a priority.
Right.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're thinking about the macros that go on the Confluence page and how you... Now, Jira will populate that macro with a set of values, or when you create from the blueprint, you will populate that set of macros. It doesn't matter which side you start from. Yeah?
Yeah.
What it's going to do is it's going to fill in your defaults, and then different types of information will have different display options available to you. So, for example, if I take a simple one, which is summary, basically, how are you going to display the summary? It's a text string. It's less than 255 characters. That's probably all you're going to have as an option is display or not display. End of.
Yeah.
Sorry, Johnston, are we interrupting your mid-afternoon snack?
No, sorry. That was just a bit of plastic just dropped on my desk.
It sounded like cutlery, didn't it, Jeff? Back me up.
I beat the fifth on this.
Okay.
I've already eaten. Well, I'm not sure if I was clear about what I meant. What I meant is that the two approaches that we came up with here basically mean they don't interact. So the Jira side, one Jira to Confluence, one Confluence to Jira. What Neil sort of came up with was that they don't interact, and the ones that Jeff makes himself are a completely separate product to the thing that I'm doing. So what Jeff and
I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just trying to think why. Because from my perspective, if we, and this is where I'm going, and this is why I'm saying, tell me why I'm wrong. So on said page to be created,
yeah,
we want to display the same information, whether we push it from Jira or pull it from in Confluence.
Yeah.
So if Confluence is pulling it and popping it into a macro, that gives you a real-time connection. So was Neil not distinguishing between the fact that these are snapshots in time versus real time?
Yeah. So the point, the reason for it was that if you have a set of individual macros that are going to be built, and so one of them, for example, would be as simple as you put in a Jira key and you put in the name of a custom field, and it will pull that data point so that you can put that data point in as, so let's say, for example, you've got a report or a letter and it says Mr. So-and-so. Yep. Instead of having so-and-so there, you put Mr. and then the macro in. So it's just Jira key custom field, right?
Yeah.
This way you can get, when the page refreshes, like you said, it's real time.
Right.
Every time. And you can also do multiple different tickets on one page, so you don't have to be restricted by the report only having one ticket. So that's why it's more of a product. And the other side from my end was that we would just show them how to do the old placeholder template thing. So we're still getting the same thing. We've just come up with sort of a separate strain on the other side.
Okay. So what we've done is we've actually split the two business cases that I gave you into two sets of two.
Yeah.
So where I gave you the one which was, I want to create a document now based on the current values. Neil's actually given you the second part to that, which is great, but it wasn't where I was going with what I was asking you to do, which is I want you to create a page that automatically updates going forward.
Yeah. So
again, go back to your business problem. So if you go back and refine that business problem, you can have those two scenarios on both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can have the event triggers in Jira and it creates a page that then is continuously updated. Great. Or it creates a page which is a point in time snapshot. On the Confluence side, it can be create the page, which gives me an ongoing view of what the current situation is, or create me a page that is locked to where we are now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then we're not in conflict. It's just that what Neil's done is he's actually given you two different aspects where I was keeping it simple to just let's have a snapshot of where we are today.
Yeah.
All right. And both of those have very valid business cases, but I wouldn't try and solve both of them at the same time.
No.
I'd say to make sure that in this production,
can you put your mic a bit closer to your head?
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, yeah. Are you saying in this instance to more of a place of designing something that doesn't take, it's not really as time consuming, trying to make it as an easier format when extracting
your background noise is terrible, Jeff. Well, sorry?
I'll mute my background noise, but your your mic's still a bit on and off, Jeff. I'll mute myself and see if it helps.
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Is that better?
That's 100 times better.
Yeah, yeah. So what I was trying to say was, so in this case, what we're trying to do is design something that's more streamlined in regards to not having two business cases, but just to formulate into one. Is that what you're trying to say? So it's much more, rather than having two separate instances.
No, what I'm saying is you're addressing two different business cases with what Neil's come up with, which is fine.
Yeah, yeah.
But the reality is that you have both a real-time connection and a snapshot connection.
Okay.
And both of those scenarios exist on both Push Me and Pull You.
Yeah.
Now, what I understood from what Johnson just said was that he was looking at it from the Jira Push Me as being produce the snapshot, but from the Confluence as being a pull me, give me the dynamic. And what I'm saying is, to begin with, let's start with doing one version, whether it be real time or whether it be snapshot, and focus on that one, because then we're addressing the same things on both sides.
Yeah.
We can then, once we've got that sorted, we can then look at, right, let's take the next one, which is, if we've done snapshot, let's do dynamic as the second cut.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
So
yeah, I think we need to. I think probably what you're going to do is go through your requirements a bit more, because I'm still slightly unsure of the sort of concepts behind me creating a page with Confluence macros on it. So I'm fine doing. I've done that before, but I need to know sort of the business requirement behind that.
Yeah, so the business requirement for that is where you want that report to be a ongoing report in that respect. So let me give you a for example. So if we think about problem management, so standard ITIL problem management, we have a root cause analysis document that needs to be produced at the end of a problem. So when the problem is finally closed down, you have a root cause analysis that tells you everything that happens. So that root cause analysis document could be started as soon as you create a problem ticket. Yeah. So as soon as you have the problem ticket, it could automatically create the placeholder for the root cause analysis document and start to populate that information going forward. Most of it would be empty, but as the problem evolves, and you link more incidents, you put in workarounds, etc., that root cause analysis document would grow in terms of its content. However, you would also have the ability for people to edit that document and put in free text. So if you imagine that the problem has the root cause analysis document says, this is the summary from the problem ticket. This is the priority from the problem ticket. These are the SLAs from the problem ticket. These are the linked incidents off the problem ticket. These are the workarounds captured in the problem ticket. Those are the macros that will be on the template that you will be populating with the details of that particular ticket.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Johnson, as an example of why you would want a real time, not a static?
Yeah.
Yeah. So my next question is, can you describe sort of what this exact macro does? What will be in this macro? Once it's created, once it's on the page, what will it be, and what will the storage format sort of look like?
Okay. I'm not going to go into what the storage format would look like, because that's a techie down to you guys.
Yeah,
all right. But I would see it as being a series of macros, not one. But if you tell me you can do it all in one, I'm perfectly happy with that. And that's down to your design. So to me, a macro that is stored in the Confluence blueprint would basically say, which Jira ticket am I calling? Which field or fields of information am I getting, and how am I going to display them? That would be what the macro would be. So if we think about this as an agile project, your minimum viable product is I have a blueprint. I can create a page from that blueprint, and it has one field which returns the summary from a Jira ticket. That could be a minimum viable product. That would be a step one.
Yeah. So, sorry, you said you could have one page with
one page, one macro.
Yeah.
And all
that macro says Jira key summary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, another macro would be retrieve all linked tickets of this. And then what it might say is, right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to display a table. So the macro is going to display a table, which is, for this Jira ticket, tell me about all of the linked tickets off there. What type of link is it? What is the key of the linked ticket? What is the summary of the linked ticket? And what is the status of the linked ticket?
Okay, so is that a table macro, or is it someone's put a table then with macros in it?
That is a macro that retrieves some information and displays it as a table. How you implement that is over to you guys.
Yeah. So what I'm getting at here is that it's sort of like this, I'm trying to piece together why it's necessary to have the Jira side of things if all I'm doing realistically is creating a page with macros that already pulls the data. So the idea behind this is where we actually came up with the idea previous. Neil came up with the idea for, if you're doing that, if I'm creating a page from Jira and Confluence, it has macros that has like pull the summary, pull whatever, each of these little macros, then
go back to what I said about one is real time, one is fixed view, one is snapshot.
But you can do that you can do that in a macro. You can do fixed view and real time.
Perfect.
In a macro. But that eliminates the need for having it on the Jira side. You can just have it from Confluence to Jira, and you'll get the exact same result without having to push a button in Jira because
no. Sorry, I've misinterpreted what I've said. So the trigger in Jira is triggered by some event happening, which could be a workflow action. It could be a particular field is updated. It could be it runs on a particular schedule of events. So once a week we pull this report, etc. So it's not a manual action necessarily by the user to say, create this page now. It would be an automated side effect. Whereas on the Confluence side, yes, it would be the user clicking on the create at the top and then being prompted to fill in some details.
Right, okay. I see what you mean. So this is where
so stop trying to solve all the problems in one hit.
No, I'm not. That's exactly what I'm not trying to do. What I'm trying to do is the opposite of that, and to solve the problem in a very minor hit without having to do the rest around it. So if Jeff creates these macros individually, right, and that's all he does, he creates macros that retrieves these certain parts of data that we've talked about, and if he creates those, then that's job done. That's one section done. The next thing I can do is to do the separate task of have an event that creates a page with them. Creates a page that just regenerates that template.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is use the Confluence blueprint.
Well, if they create a blueprint and put each one of those macros in individually, when I regenerate that page and get the storage format and post it back, then it will work automatically because those macros are already there, right? Which is almost what you were saying.
So what I'm saying is you would create a page based upon a blueprint.
Yeah, so let's say like we did with you've got sample reports space, right?
No, that's different. They are not blueprints and they are not templates. They are already saved pages.
Right.
You know in Confluence, when you click on the create button, the three dots at the side, it says, what type of thing do you want to create? Those are blueprints.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so those are the blueprints. That's what's slightly different to what you did before.
I think that's what was confusing me. I thought we'd just rename blueprints from templates.
No. So
Okay.
So a blueprint actually contains one or more templates, just to make life slightly awkward. So I think one of the things it would help you to would be to have a look at Confluence blueprints and templates and understand the relationship between them. Basically, a blueprint contains one or more templates. Typically, it is a content template and an index template. And we're particularly focused here on the content template. Now, within that content template, there would be one or more macros and indeed standard text that would automatically go into the creation of that new page.
Okay. Do they create these blueprints themselves?
No, they're done by the Confluence administrator.
Yeah, that's all right. Okay.
So the Confluence administrator would deploy a set of blueprints and macro and templates to their instance, and they would then be available to the users of that instance.
And in those templates, they'll have macros, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So like I said, the first step for me is create a blueprint template that can be triggered off the create button within Confluence or triggered from Jira pushing to that instance. That's task number one.
Right.
So that you can confirm that here's a hello world template in Confluence, and we can build it by clicking on the create in Confluence or triggering an event in Jira. That makes sense?
Yeah, one sec. I'm just going to get on Confluence because it's sort of making sense, but I just want to...
Yeah, because I'm even looking at the blueprint
Okay,
section.
let me share my screen. This happens to be UU that I've got on screen, but all right. So you can see here, yeah, there are a number of different things. One of which is Jira report, which isn't available here. For some reason, we haven't got the Jira report one. But there is on a lot of Confluence instances, there is a Jira report template and blueprint.
Yeah, and what does that do?
Basically, it goes and pulls a set of information from Jira and displays it in a set of macros. So it's very similar to your real-time solution that you're already talking about. But it's not customizable. It is linked to that one view. Let me see if I go into I. Okay, and I'm going to create.
Yeah, I has it. I'm on it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's one saying community.
There we are. Jira report.
Okay.
Okay.
What are you talking about Confluence for a second?
And you can do a change log or a status report. Yeah.
All right. Can you click one of those?
Yeah, we'll do a status report. So it then says, okay, so you're going to create a status report. So what are the parameters that I put in? I put in server. I put in project. I don't want to be in product support. I want to be in customer support to get United Utilities. Okay, and create. And what you'll see is that this already has some macros that retrieve some information from Jira. So this is already part of what is your real-time creation. So I didn't want to reinvent this bit. So you can see here it has various macros and various things laid out. Yeah. And you can tweak and adjust those as you wish. Yeah.
Right.
So we don't need to do that. What we need to do is look at these macros that exist already
Yep.
and think, what other macros would we need? Because there isn't a nice give me a report of the linked tickets macro. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
There isn't a give me a nice diagram using SmartDraw of the relationship between this ticket and other tickets. I'm not expecting you to do that one. I'm just giving you a real stretcher in that respect. All right? So this method is already set up for the real-time stuff. Yeah? But what we need is the ability to do a snapshot, which is to say, okay, I've created this page, I've filled in the parameters, but rather than it creating it with a macro, which is here is the ongoing 139 issues, I want it to say, on 28th of February, we retrieved the value and it was 139 issues, and you can't edit that dynamically.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
To give you another case study that's going to be around this, one of the things that GSK have that we were talking about on the call yesterday, and this is very much depends on where they go with their requirements. One of the things that they are, because they're heavily regulated, they need to have a record of the position at the start of every daily stand-up. So one of the things that they might want is the ability to do on a schedule, such as a cron task, every Monday to Friday at 9 a.m., for example, take a copy and record in a page in Confluence what the stand-up situation was on that day.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah?
Yeah, this makes a lot more sense. So, like, in summary...
So from a business perspective, what I suggest you to do now, use the product requirements blueprint on I, create a push me, pull me space, and write out what you think the big use case is. Think about what the tasks are within that. Think about the difference between the dynamic and the snapshot in time. Think about what might be the macros, and are those macros two versions, one which just grab the value now and store it, grab the value and display whatever it is in the future. Yeah? Don't try and write all the macros in one hit. Keep your first MVP as just being, I want to just put the summary into a document built from that blueprint.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. So I think the bit that I'm trying to iron out is the bit that basically, when you talked about it previously, you said that Jira is going to insert information into a macro in Confluence, right?
Yep. So if it's building a dynamic page, let's say that you were calling this template, this blueprint, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I can't go back, unfortunately, but you remember the previous screen where it said, here are the parameters for this blueprint? Yeah, so if I publish this page and I do another one. So this is where I'm going to go completely off-piste, okay? Right, so there's my dynamic one. Yeah. So if I do another create Jira report, okay, so I'm going to say something here which is probably completely ludicrous, yeah?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you can think about it and say, you're right, it is ludicrous. Yeah. So rather than, so is there a REST endpoint in Confluence to which I can pass the name of the blueprint, the subtype of the blueprint, and the parameters of the blueprint?
Let me have a look.
No, I don't. That's probably what Confluence is going to have to build. Yeah. But do you see what I'm saying? So on the Confluence side, there will be a mechanism that will receive from Jira a trigger that says, build me a page
It's in content properties. Yeah.
using this blueprint with these parameters. Oh, and by the way, you better tell me which space you want it in as well. And then authentication. Do I have permission to build in there? What are the error messages that should be generated? So you don't have permission. You can't find that blueprint name. What error message does that give? You don't have permission to create a page in that space. Yeah, etc.
I think I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both happy now about next steps?
These macros that we're looking at behind the page, so
Yeah.
the ones that we're basically doing the same thing but making them static, right?
Yeah.
So those macros there, all little individual ones. If Jeff did exactly the same macro as that status one there, right?
Yeah.
But his macro pulled it and made it static, yeah?
Yeah.
Then that would mean that my Jira script wouldn't need to insert any data at all because he could just pull it and keep it static in his macro, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So I think we're getting to the same page now because that's almost what I meant earlier. So if you've got a blueprint page with Jeff's static macro in it,
yep,
then all my script needs to do is to do what you said, is to create that template. But it doesn't. Yeah, I guess it would have to pass.
I think the difference, Johnson, that you've got to get out of your head. We're not doing it the way we did with you, which was that you took a page of content and you search and replace the content.
Yeah, so I'm obviously just going to be sending it to an API that, well, yes. If that API that you just said we need.
The thing, I didn't say, well, I did say it was an API, but the thing that you need, which is basically got to say,
create that template.
Yeah.
Create a page in this space based on this template.
Blueprint,
blueprint. And here's the parameters that you need to be able to pass to that blueprint.
Yeah, okay. See, because that's like, that makes the process on my side completely different now, because it means that I don't actually have to pull any data.
Yes. Yep.
So previously I had it in my, obviously the idea was for me to insert it into some XML, right? Yeah. But now we've scrapped that and it's pretty much all on the Confluence side of things, because it's just, the only thing I'm doing is to pass essentially three parameters to that blueprint API.
It may be more than three. As you work your way through with different cases and scenarios,
yeah, of course,
the number of parameters may change. But yeah, the principle is you will be calling an API and just pushing across to say, these are the parameters that I need you to take into there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jeff is building the published API to take that information, create a page based on that in the known space, and to make sure the macros are correctly populated with the parameters.
I suggest doing that from the Confluence side. I thought I would create it in the space from the Jira side.
The boundary is fuzzy. Okay. So you're passing some information, Johnson. So you're pushing to Confluence for it to publish the page.
Yeah.
Jeff, on his side, would be pulling that information from Confluence. So in a sense, you're passing, the push is push the parameters, and the pull is the pull me the data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just obviously on which side does the page get created? Does it get created from?
I think the page gets created on the Confluence side.
Yeah. That would obviously make more sense, I think.
But again, over to you two to work together a simple minimum viable product in the first instance. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Of what that looks like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know you just said it's the ludicrous idea, right, or whatever. But what
Is
if there is? No. You said, tell me if this is ludicrous, and you said about having the calling that blueprint thing, right?
Mhm.
What if that API doesn't exist to create from blueprint?
Guess what you're building?
That API. How do you build it? How can we add to the Confluence API?
How do you add to a Jira API?
Via XML. It's not via XML, is it?
No. So, Johnson,
I don't know.
how did you extend the APIs available on Jira?
Add my own REST endpoint, yeah.
Yeah. How do
Yeah,
you
but
do
the
it?
rest. Yeah, but the REST endpoint. Hold on a minute. Hold on.
So the REST endpoint, can we build REST endpoints in Confluence?
Jeff.
Yes, you can.
Yeah. Okay. Right. But a REST endpoint to create a page from a blueprint, surely that still needs to have the blueprint, right?
Yeah, but the blueprint already exists in Confluence.
Yeah.
Okay. So can you access those through the API? Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm just making sure that there's no complete blockers before we even start getting into this, because that would be a blocker. If we can't get the blueprint out, we can't do this.
Yeah. So get these things documented
And then do it. Okay.
and say, here is a concern. TechSpike, can we access the blueprint? Can we get the list of blueprints, and can we access that blueprint using Confluence, script runner for Confluence, and expose it to an API? That's the question that you're asking, isn't it? It's not, is there an API already that gives you a create from blueprint? It's, can we access the list of blueprints? Can we retrieve one, and can we populate it with script runner for Confluence and or Confluence existing REST API?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is what I'm saying. It's really important, guys, that not just having these conversations, you now start to write things down and think about what are the things that you need to check. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is one which is create content. Now, is there a template or blueprint element? No, nothing in the REST API that's jumping out. However, there is a search for entities.
CQL search.
So CQL search. So, here we are, content blueprint.
There you go.
Okay. So there are some things that we can do. Oh, not sure who that was. Backing my head off, but God, it was loud.
Sorry.
That's all right. I take it you sat in the middle of the open plan office rather than
Yeah, I'm at the
one of
top.
the quiet bits. Yeah. Yeah. So we start by looking at those APIs, and then we start looking at script runner for Confluence. And what we look at, there we go, in there, and then we start to look at, within that, we look at, right, so can we write a script that reports on all of the blueprints that are available in Confluence?
Okay.
Yeah, which in Jira terms would be like, can I pull a list of all of the schemes, all the issue type schemes in Jira?
Yeah.
Is this the first time you've married?
So
Not directly.
get your big picture, break it down into tasks, take one of those tasks, break it down and break it down and break it down until you've got a simple achievable bit. Yeah. So to begin with, your minimum viable product is really so simple, it's ridiculous. It's a REST endpoint, an integration point, which you can decide whether it's a REST endpoint or whatever. It's a REST endpoint. that in Confluence says receive a call and create a page in this particular location with this unique identifier saying hello world, so that we can confirm that the Jira instance can call that REST endpoint and it creates a page with appropriate authentication.
Okay.
That's your step
What they're basically trying to do is
0.00001 in terms of your final product. But it is a minimum viable product because it's then showing that you have a blueprint. So you built it. Sorry, it's showing that you have an endpoint talking to an endpoint.
Yeah.
basically
Yeah. Then you start to build out from there. And as Jeff builds more macros, you can then extend the script to say, right, here's how I pass the parameters for that type of macro. Here's how I pass the parameters for that type of macro. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else at this point? Feel free to write this up and get me to review it. I'll review it from the perspective of the business, but I'm relying on you guys to think about it from a technical perspective.
Yeah.
Yep. No worries.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
All happy now? Know where to get started?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Right.
Okay.
I'll share the recording with you as soon as it's done.
All right. Cheers.
I'll stick it up on YouTube. It'll have no video, but it'll still go up as an MP3 for you.
Okay. Cool.
All
Cheers.
right. Cheers, guys. Bye.
See you later. Bye.